Good morning, Congressman. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Well, the State of the Union, that was last night. You were there. What are your takeaways?
I was very disappointed. I was hoping that he'd take a page from Bill Clinton's playbook when Clinton lost the House. He reached across the aisle, worked with the Republican majority, and did some miraculous things. Balanced the budget for the first time in 50 years. Reduced the capital gains tax burden and produced a period of remarkable economic expansion, including reforming welfare. Instead, Joe Biden simply doubled down on the same failed policies that have plagued our country for the last 2 years.
On a different topic now, from your perspective, where do you say that we're standing when it comes to raising the debt ceiling?
Well, ultimately that has to occur, but the debt ceiling is there to assure that just as a family that has to increase its credit card limit because it's spending more than it's taking in, the debt ceiling is there to prompt a family discussion. You've got to sit down around that family table and ask, why are we spending more than we're taking in, and what can we do about it? That's what the debt limit is there for. So for the president to say he's not willing to negotiate on that is absurd. I mean, that's what this entire process of government is all about. It's about talking out our differences, negotiating, and coming to a common conclusion for the direction of our country. Instead, we had nothing but a litany of additional spending at a time when we're running a record deficit and record debt.
Well, we're getting closer and closer to June. Is it your prediction that eventually everyone's going to have to talk and come up with some kind of agreement here?
Well, one of two things is going to happen. Either we're going to voluntarily restrain spending now, or markets will intervene and restrain our spending later, and that is going to be a very brutal and very painful process. There's nothing theoretical about the money that we're spending. And when we print $4.2 trillion to cover the debt of the last 2 years, you're paying that back every day at the grocery store, at the gas station, and it's bringing our economy into grave territory. You know, the last half of 2020, the last year of the Trump administration, the economy grew 20% in just that half year. In the last year, we've seen it grow by only 1.5%. That's the difference between pro-growth policies of the previous administration and the socialist policies of Joe Biden, spending everything in sight.
One of the bills that you've introduced so far was H.R. 187, the Default Prevention Act. If passed, what would that bill? Would it address this problem or anything like that?
Yes, it would assure that a default is off the table. It would allow the Treasury Secretary to continue to pay a principal and interest on the debt to assure that even if there's a complete impasse in Washington, the full faith and credit of the United States will be honored. It's an ironclad guarantee.
What are your thoughts on that? Do you think it will pass and go to the Senate?
Well, it passed the House the last time the Republicans had a majority, but it failed in the Senate. So I'm quite confident we'll be able to get it out of the House. Getting it through the Senate is a completely different matter.
So what would you say is the bellwether for the 118th Congress, the one thing the public should watch to tell them how it is going this session?
Actually, two things. History is screaming these warnings at us that countries that bankrupt themselves aren't around very long, and that countries that cannot defend their borders aren't around very long. And we've not only seen record spending and record deficits, again, $4.2 trillion added to the national debt just in the last 2 years, which is doing enormous harm to the economy. But we've also left our borders wide open. We'd secured those borders under the Trump administration. Very first day in office, Biden reversed those policies, and the result is that 2.9 million illegal immigrants have been deliberately admitted into this country, either directly by this administration or gotaways, evading interception as the Border Patrol has been overwhelmed, taking names and changing diapers. 2.9 million is the size of the entire population of the state of Mississippi, added into our country in the last 25 months of this administration, deliberately. These people are impoverished, they are dependent, and are placing an enormous strain on everything from our schools, packing our classrooms with non-English speaking students, packing hospital emergency rooms with illegals demanding care. It's having a big impact on crime. It's straining the social safety net, adding 2.9 million dependent people onto that net. And of course, it's harming working Americans by flooding the labor market with cheap illegal labor. Explain to me how any of that does our country any good.